I am Ivan Rannick, Interrogator to Inquisitor Grendel. Welcome to the Warband. Welcome to the Inquisition.
Well, Regent, how do you answer? Who do you fight for?
For the Emperor, I'm sure.
On one of the days between 0 and the year 40,000, some cheeky blighter thought it would be a good idea to form an order to tackle the enemy within. A faction designed to root out the corruption staining the inner workings of an otherwise perfect empire. A faction that strides into the aftermath of hard-fought victories and says, "Oh, you did a good job on saving the planet and countless lives, but your coworker did say you were glowing purple for a few seconds, so I'm going to have to torture you indefinitely."
I am a heretic.
A few depictions of the Inquisition show off the mortal lives of those at the helm, and we get to hear their thoughts and feelings as they bumble their way through the galaxy. While that's all good and dandy, it's hard to relate to the high-stakes adventures of famous Inquisitors after gorging myself on Darktide, a game that has played to its strengths by showing us a more humble slice of 40k. There are, after all, only 90 billion souls to be saved in the city of Tertium. Whether a threat to humanity is stamped out sensibly, or by using methods bordering on the comically evil, depends very much on the mood of the Inquisitor. So far, Atoma has remained unexploded, and given the situation, it looks like whoever is leading the Inquisition in Darktide prefers a bit of subterfuge, as well as the deployment of strangely potent penal legions. What is Darktide's Inquisition then, if not an extension of the Inquisitor's buffoonery? Or at least the members of the Warband we are left with. Aboard a reluctant rogue trader's ship, important mission comms are overrun by petty arguments from your boss and the boss of your boss. It's a bit like having a fight to the death while your parents divorce in the other room. There's no question that the Warband is desperate and in need of some counselling, but it's exactly this hand-picked crew of misfits that make the Inquisition fun to be around.
Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I?
Do you know who I am? No, we fucking don't.
To make things awkward from the get-go, Grendel, Inquisitor of the Ordo Hereticus and leader of the Warband, has never shown his face to us lowly rejects. However, while our characters have been living on the Morningstar, a place brimming with danger for those who ask too many questions, we've had literal years to ponder the mystery of Grendel from an outside perspective and in the relative safety of our homes. So you can imagine the sheer size of intel we've compounded on the bloke.
It's nothing.
Alright, for real though, it's suggested that yes, the Inquisitor does exist and that he is active planet-side, assisting in recapturing districts such as Calder and Stack, an industrial zone barely piercing the surface of Tertium. This is probably news to even experienced Darktide players, and that's because it's lore from the Darktide Miniatures board game. More familiar to you and me are references to the Inquisitor from our lovely cast, most of which emphasize the Warband's curiosity surrounding the highly enigmatic man who has seemingly abandoned his subordinates to figure things out on their own.
Will Grendel ever join us here, do you suppose?
Very likely, but only when we least expect him.
With forces stretched thin, it's no wonder Grendel has left the unenviable job of purging Tertium's most horrid sublevels to the gang on the Morningstar. As to what other mischief Grendel is up to, perhaps he's slumming it with the noble houses, trying to figure out which ones don't wipe when they go to the toilet, or gathering information in less conventional ways.
I infiltrated the township posing as your average American Yankee Doodle dandy, and I took over Lucky Brew's Bar and Grill. The previous owner, he mysteriously disappeared because I killed him.
In any case, this cryptic behaviour doesn't surprise characters like Interrogator Rannick, who talks about the Inquisitor in the same salty tone of a manager whose boss has been on a smoke break for the last 5 months.
You know the old saying, anything worth doing is better delegated to expendable underlings?
You really do know Grendel.
It would be hopeful to assume that our Inquisitor's only play is not just to send convicts to fight hundreds of well-trained traitor guardsmen, or that a wild goose chase around the Mobian domain has not led to the Inquisitor being outplayed by people who actively sniff their own farts. I very much doubt he initially thought the rejects would do anything other than die by the droves in acts of sheer incompetence. Nonetheless, we're achieving what is asked of us, restoring key weapons manufacture, recovering the secrets of Mobian steel, and psychologically dismantling the traitors.
Well, I have to say, none of the reports mentioned that. Strike team, start smashing.
Interrogator Rannick, the de facto leader of the Inquisition, is a ruthless man, a paranoid man, a anything that isn't getting to the bottom of things man. In a way, can you blame the poor fella? He's been given command over convicted felons to fight an elite traitor guard regiment. Oh, and the remaining loyalist guard have all taken Nurgle-infected fentanyl. Every day, the rogue trader threatens to throw him out of a window, and to top things off, a commissar with questionable aspirations has barged her way into the operation. Also, everyone hates him. Rannick's rule is cold-blooded. In the sense that thousands of Hive citizens are dying while he figures out a way to demoralize the traitors. It's a bit unfair to say he's bad at his job with how little we know, but his methods are slow enough to raise a few eyebrows among his associates.
God, what a fool I was to put my baby up in those balloons. They're gonna think I'm a fool at work.
During his brief stints on the mission Vox, he's so unapologetically nonchalant that it almost seems like he doesn't care at all. Hell, he's almost likable.
It looks positively frosty down there.
That is, until you arrive back on the Morning Star, where you'll be quickly reminded that the Imperium excels at raising unsavory characters.
The Imperium, alas, is less a single kingdom than a sea of petty fiefdoms. As far as this warband is concerned, I am an absolute monarch.
Atoma could very well be the last checkbox on a list for Rannick to ascend to the rank of Inquisitor. So far, an unconvincing performance, but what do I know about forging people into unhinged agents of the secret police?
Zola is straight to point. Only don't get point.
I don't know how she does it, but Zola feels like a foil to everyone, a confused little contrarian with a personal connection to Tertium. Zola is apparently doing a street rat to Inquisitor speedrun as her explicator rank is quite fresh, having been picked up during the campaign. More recently, her efforts have been too dangerous, too personal, catching the attention of Rannick, who put her on the naughty step until Grendel authorized her return.
Alright, ban that guy for as long as it takes for them to understand what they did wrong. Which is probably 2 minutes.
Zola once knew Wolver, lead traitor of the Mobian Sixth. At some point, from a hard hit to the noggin or one of those grimdark mind wipes, she kind of forgot about her true relation to the guy. Although she initially states that she'll no longer pursue Wolver and her logs, the rest of her diary entries can be boiled down to something like, "They may have caught me acting unwise, and I'll fucking do it again." That's why the Psychers all mention Zola having two minds. It's to tease her inner conflict and the potential emergence of long-forgotten memories. On one hand, I can respect her for challenging this idiot's orders. On the other, getting dozens of rejects killed just to see if your best mate has been turned into an absolute ghoul is not it. Though not to say that she's someone who will immediately forget all of their principles after a few incidents. On top of all that, there is a sort of unspoken rivalry between her and the upper retinue, palpable in, I don't know, every conversation they have together. It's a lethal mixture of opposing methodologies and almost obligatory workplace competitiveness.
Maybe your sources didn't consider a vortex of heretical energy worth mentioning.
Oh, you have a waspish tongue, Augustine. Not your most becoming feature.
Ooh, a bit of sass from the bar.
Hilariously, Zola has the gall to claim that her obsession with Wolver was because she knew he's the key to more leads on the cult, and not because she secretly used to pray for the bloke's safety every night before bed. With leadership like this, it's starting to make sense why an Ogryn was made quartermaster of the warband. Hopefully the other members will convince you that Atoma isn't completely doomed.
Rejects, please try to comport yourselves with dignity aboard this vessel. Otherwise, well, I have a good many airlocks at my disposal.
I understand that Brahms, Shipmistress of the Morning Star and Rogue Trader, is not directly part of the Inquisition, though she, like many others, has been wrapped up in this fiasco too. An old friend of Grendel, she has reluctantly granted a portion of her beloved vessel to the warband. Apparently she owes him a favour, although I fail to see how she'd be able to say no to the Inquisition anyway.
Cut out every scrap of darkness.
Oh, fuck off.
It's a tad difficult to outright refuse the Inquisition, but nobody said anything about not harassing them on a ship-wide Vox every 2 minutes. You'd think that after a very prideful intro cinematic monologue about the duty of the Inquisition, she'd be more up to the challenge. Safe to say she's no longer a fan of Grendel, and by extension Rannick. More worrying is that her attempts to converse with an interrogator of the Inquisition are going a lot more differently than mine.
I love you.
When you inherit a piece of paper with the God Emperor's blood on it stating you can do whatever you want, and you're stuck orbiting some bumfuck hive city, Brahms' frustration starts to seem justified. If she's not busy cursing the day that she let Grendel and his band of criminals infest her floating cathedral mansion, she's cussing out members of her own crew for all to hear.
Stephanie, Grendel, Engine Circaean, Interrogator Rannick.
Pikachu! Meow! Pokemon macaroni and cheese!
Stop by Commodore Hallowette station, and don't be taken in by her manner. She's killed more men than anyone else aboard this ship by a considerable margin.
Hallowette, seneschal for the Brahms lineage, is our purveyor of bi-weekly slop. Her cheery demeanour is part genuine. The rest of it, though, a front for her true calling as a cutthroat pirate.
Ahoy for the frontier and lashings of plunder!
With the Inquisition on her doorstep, trading with Xenos races and other potential hobbies have taken a hit, so her best option is to fleece Tertium for all it's worth, something which I can sympathize with. There have of course been efforts to cripple this behavior. One Inquisition tech priest has been erasing her trade data, and Grendel's spy master pokes his head in her business whenever possible.
Go stick your head in the reactor, you old goat!
It's a risky game for those who want to stay alive and untortured, a side that the well-behaving rejects won't see, unless everyone stops buying her supply of jackets from dead dudes.
The scan location. You are already there. Commendable.
As someone who inherited a ship that rides through an alternate hell dimension with potentially disastrous consequences, the last thing you'd want is for your chief engineer to be forgetful. Yet, old age has made Engine Seer KX-8 forgetful.
And also made me forgetful it has.
An ancient tech priest of modest distinction, KX finds joy in the functioning of machines no matter how mundane. He talks, if a bit slowly, about machines as if they have life, a characteristic which I realise is not unique among tech priests. Even so, it doesn't take away from the humorous way he addresses things.
Full of mischief is that servo skull.
Assumedly, due to the Morningstar's unexciting travel prospects, KX has time to aid the Inquisition, surprisingly holding the rejects in esteem, yet ready to lecture their biologically induced blunders when needed. Contrary to many of the lunatics in the Cult of Mars, KX does not go out of his way to insult regular loyalists. No, he has a much cheekier way of getting under our nerves.
Free-range pre-servitors.
Kindly do not refer to us as pre-servitors.
Yes, O Lady of the Stars.
Currently, KX is working with another tech priest in order to refurnish the planet's famous tank production facilities. Being the kindly old man he is, KX has deemed this colleague's methods as fatally idiosyncratic, which is his way of saying they're bloody stupid. As for the person who's giving him a hand,
I have been operative for 392.1736 Terran cycles. I have been angry for most of them.
Initially, we meet Hadron Omega-77 at a bad time, back when the game was still pretending that we were scheduled for execution. Currently in service to Grendel as head tech priest and ambassador of sorts to the Cult Mechanicus, she spends her time on the ship shaping up whatever the Inquisition needs to wage war.
Interrogator status, inoperative. Remedy, reboot.
Her disdain for the inefficiency of cretins parading the Morningstar is more in line with other tech priests, to the point that she is genuinely baffled as to why someone can suffer the rejects.
Engine Seer KX appears to be fond of you varlets.
It's this delivery of scornful yet amusing observations that has kept her in the community spotlight, and definitely not any other deranged reason. Despite her grouchiness, she is still remarkably blithe for a bionic horror of the AdMech. Hadron comes from the noble division of tech priests called techno-archaeologists, folks who go nuts for lost relics. The definition of relics can be broad, and I'm sure if you pestered Hadron with enough stupid questions, she'd be happy to make a relic of your remains. In the I'm going to trap your soul in your own skull and watch you float around in menial servitude kind of way.
Does your computer ever seem to have a mind of its own?
Without Hadron, the Inquisition on Atoma would be far less equipped to deal with the traitors. Provided no more miscreants start hanging around at her workstation, she'll continue to maintain our suspiciously rare gear with the light.
Unleash the power of the servo skull! Apologies. I'm not sure where that came from.
Humans craved enlightenment. To find it, they'd need a spiritual role model, and as luck would have it, someone fitting that bill was about to arrive. None other than Mr. Jesus Christ.
Arriving with pen and paper, much to the disappointment of Zola, Sister Hestia Prime records the deeds of rejects who make an effort to save Tertium. Hailing from Holy Crucis, there are plenty of fanatics from that shrine world who would see Tertium cleansed without care for its occupants. Not Hestia. She channels the teachings of Messalina, a saint who was assassinated by the very creed that spreads her worship today.
Ironic or what?
Rannick is content to let her corral clout with the rejects, but in his genius he has found other uses for the novitiate scribe, ones that involve sending her to deal with the insufferable nobles of Atoma in his place. If she realizes that she's being used, she doesn't mention it, instead criticizing the nobles and their kin over the Vox.
These deaths were avoidable. The Hive Administratum had a duty to these souls.
Okay, so what's the catch? She's from the Ecclesiarchy. Where's the redundant hatred for people who have done nothing wrong? Don't worry, it's there. In that sense, Hestia is not built different.
You are lost.
Where would you like for me to drive?
For someone who has arrived to serve the Inquisition during such dire times, she stands unusually resolute. Perhaps that's the stubbornness of a cult upbringing doing its magic.
I'll thank you not to stare at me like that.
I'm not staring at you.
You are standing in my staring place.
In a day, Sire Milk might listen to hundreds of reports from inquisitorial agents, spies, loyalist allies, and even traitors pretending to be loyalist spies.
This is Wormwood. I am a Wormwood agent.
Oh, you're using your made-up names.
It's a confusing and stressful time for those who spend 90% of their life staring at an iPad. Unfortunately, it's a necessary job, and Grendel seems to have found the perfect little snake for it. Sire Darius Milk and his titles, that if I read out would make this video 2 minutes longer, is a pompous bloke managing Inquisition intelligence. Upon first meeting, he will immediately brag that Grendel finds him an excellent judge of character, which can immediately be refuted by the fact that he likes the loner psyker. Oftentimes we hear his arrogance propagate the Morning Star, clashing with Hallowette especially, whom he sees as both rival and walking talking business opportunity. He will fervently chase down a chance to make profit, spinning it as Inquisition business if someone has the balls to confront his decorated noble self.
Grendel shall hear of this.
After years of being stuck to a data slate, the Milkman craves to engage the traitors face to face. Alas, he is of best use to the Imperium in his tiny little corner, only experiencing the chastisement of heretics vicariously through his personal Auric strike teams, or the Rejects. A lot of people give him shit, but he's about half as shady as you'd expect Grendel's spy administrator to be, which is still quite a lot.
4 enter the fray, but how many will leave?
The entire fucking team. On the Morning Star, there's a lone psyker drifting in a peculiar chamber. No, it's not Brahms' twisted idea of an aquarium, it's Syphon, a formidable telepathic psyker loyal to the Inquisition. Her ability to scan the minds of people beyond Tertium brings about a whole manner of questions. Why doesn't she find Wolver and just... Why doesn't she point Rannick or Grendel straight to any and all traitors? Maybe she doesn't want to get too freaky with the strange warp presence on Atoma. Maybe it's because a conflict quickly resolved means there's less time to watch you decimate the line of specials in the Psychanium.
Stephanie likes the company and the taste of your bloodlust.
During these sessions, she has a nasty habit of blurting out trivia. Only, what kind of trivia from this trickster could elicit a mention? The kind that makes Darktide YouTubers say stupid stuff in videos.
She tricked me with her witchcraft.
Her motives are pretty cloudy until you put yourself in her shoes. She's stuck in a giant freezing jar. What else is there to do but troll the shit out of people who hate you with little to no consequence? Few have the honor of having a mind unscathed by Syphon shenanigans. Fewer have earned the privilege of friendship with Syphon, like the worst liar on the Morning Star, Oscar Kral.
Be careful down there. Heretics have no sense of style.
Whatever Kral did to have Syphon so enthralled is a mystery, much in the same way he himself is a mystery. He's not a giant question mark like Grendel, in part because we see him. He's right there, doing his thing, carving Rejects a new look in increasingly gruesome ways. Apart from a barber, he's a surgeon, a real one, although his education in both fields is questionable.
Look at the top of his head!
Kral's value to the Inquisition comes in his ability to upgrade or at least augment the warband's frail bodies, and if that fails, he can replace your entire past with something a tad better. You know, if only there were a character who has a past filled with contradictions, an obvious victim of memory erasure, as it were, to make things easier for me to explain.
I can scarce believe it. I hear Morrow fought at Macragge and saved the life of Lord Calgar himself.
I'm Sergeant Major Morrow. You're fresh meat.
To many, Morrow is the survivor of a dozen infamous wars in Imperial history. To others, his rumoured escapades won't make a lick of sense. He holds the rank of Sergeant Major, and if his word is to be believed, he hails from the Armageddon Steel Legion.
It's not so bad. You should see some of the hives on Armageddon.
There's no doubt Morrow has been active in a few wars, fighting orcs, gene stealers, and whatever enemies the Rejects have cooked up to fill in his shrouded past. None of them were good for the soul, for his has grown weary from all the death and loss. It must hurt to make such good soldiers out of a bunch of nobodies, only to see them wiped out in an instant.
Don't drop the bloody thing over the edge.
Oh, Grud! Sorry, sir.
Either by order of Grendel, or just because she wanted someone to mess with, Syphon has in part soothed Morrow's mind to take the edge off his time in the war. However, it's not known exactly how generous her aid was, if it could even be called aid at all. Apart from her, only Morrow knows, or he doesn't. That's kind of the point. His dominion over the Rejects is one that is firm but fair, and over time, I reckon he's grown attached to our stupidity.
This lot might be no opus, but they're my no opus.
Everything according to regulations on a ship so very far away from the standards of the Guard. If anything, his wrath is more directed at members of the retinue who failed to meet his expectations, those who spend half their day stripping the Inquisition of its soldiers for their own gain.
The more I talk to you, Morrow, the more I warm to greenskins.
I can see that. You got a lot in common with those Xenos filth. Morrow out.
The heretics have taken over a complex. Right now, they're beaming out propaganda. Walks the line between tech and magic. gets right in your head and turns you against the Emperor.
A Vox broadcast that turns you to chaos? Bit far-fetched, ain't it?
As the best pilot in the warband, Mososi's job is to ferry the team of whoever has the most convincing argument, which tends to be Rannick. Her Valkyrie, lovingly named the Storm Raptor, is the perfect aircraft to get people in and out the hive in one piece. She's a cheerful sort and genuine to boot, offering more casual mission comms than the rest. At times she'll happily help the team to squash the odd heretic, having a few set pieces of her own. Besides being a top-of-the-line pilot, her cockiness might come from her card-playing skills, though others will say that she cheats.
But she cheats.
It could also be from her unique ability to talk down the mighty Ogryn. In case having a Steel Legion Sarge didn't throw you off already, the warband is home to a Katchan Ogryn by the name of Gurry Brunt Cernick. Officially, he's the Quartermaster. Confusingly, he's the Quartermaster. And hey, there's a reason Morrow is losing his mind at the standards of the place. Maybe I'm a hater, and the brute is amazing at his job. He's been missing for 2 years, so I wouldn't know.
Really, Sergeant Major, there's no need to take that kind of attitude.
For all we know, the bloke who calls himself Swagger could be a legit member of the Inquisition. He knows Grendel, Rannick hasn't executed him on the spot, Syphon can't even read his mind, and he has some very cheeky lines, or bluffs, hinting that he is no mere hive scum scoundrel.
I'm sure we've met before. Tell me, were you ever on Vostroya?
His presence is equally vexing for Hadron as it is for us, as he spends his time moping around her station.
Kindly do not stare.
Was I staring? I'm so sorry. My mind was wandering through past glories.
Swagger is Darktide's keep 'em guessing character, and you can bet that any time someone says he's Grendel or that he's an Eldari in disguise, the dev team is laughing their socks off.
You wouldn't want to lose your rank, would you?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
The Commissar's rank is unique. It doesn't follow generic command structure, so it's a shame Commissar Dukane has taken residence with two factions who aren't obligated to listen to her. I can just imagine the Steelheads' introduction to their new barracks, hearing a combination of Rannick's sardonic preaching, the Shipmistress threatening to flush the Inquisition into space, the Seneschal's open secret Xenos trade, and Morrow apologizing after being unable to provide them with the cogitator codes to the bathroom.
Sergeant Major, I require access to the latrine.
What?
An iron fist is something the Inquisition can appreciate. However, a Commissar who greatly values her strategies over the subtle designs of Rannick and Grendel is not great news. It piles on to the giant mess Grendel's Inquisition seems to have become, a magnet for dumbfounding antics while so many lives are at stake. The Morningstar at the center of it all, home to countless background characters that have a minute impact on your experience, but give them a name and make someone walk past them hundreds of times and things will slowly click into place. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm best friends with some of them at this point.
Go bother someone else.
Filthy rejects.
Stop stinking up my corridor.
Well, this is fun. We're getting an update where Syphon gets to toy with our minds even more. At this point, I have no idea what the next video is going to be because there might actually be some juicy lore in the Mortis Trials, or it could just be cryptic Syphon one-liners. Who knows? I mean, what's the worst thing she could even say? Let's be real here.
Having the inquisitorial seal so close gives a man swagger and no swagger.